When life gets unpredictable, preparation matters. In medicine, it's all about staying alert, ready for whatever comes through the door. On the road, it's no different. That's why Volvo designs vehicles to help anticipate risk, reduce harm, and protect lives. The Volvo XC90's advanced safety systems inspire confident decisions wherever the road takes you. The Volvo XC90, for life. Proud sponsor of the Pit Podcast. Learn more at volvocars.ca/safety.
Let's take a look now at a big story. It's a big business story with big ramifications right here in Quebec. U.S. hardware giant Lowe's is selling its Canadian retail operations. That's about 450 stores. Now here in Quebec, Lowe's owns Rona and Renault Depot. In the rest of Canada, they run Lowe's and Dick's Lumber banners as well. They've been running in Canada for 6 years, and it's been disappointing for Lowe's. So now, a New York-based private equity firm, Sycamore Partners, has bought the 450 Canadian stores for $400 million. The CEO of Lowe's said the sale was an important step in simplifying the company's business model. Let's find out what it means for the stores in Quebec, for Quebec business in general. Moshe Lander is on the line, senior lecturer in economics at Concordia University. Moshe, welcome back.
Programming note, I'm on now.
Very true. And what could be more important, Moshe? So let's get to this story here. And I want to talk about the Quebec aspects right off the top, right? For our listeners here, Lowe's, through Rona and Renault Depot, employs a ton of people in this province. So what's your take here? Finding out that Lowe's Canadian operations are going to a private equity firm, what does this mean?
So they've been cutting staff for a few years now, so this is not going to be something new. They've struggled in Canada. They've struggled to compete against Home Depot primarily, but Canadian Tire and Home Hardware are also two major icons of Canadian industry that they're competing with. What it means now is that there's probably even more job cuts coming. There's probably store closures coming. And the logic is that they're going to try and rationalize their operations and try and find a way to be profitable in Canada if they're going to stay here at all.
I think there's a case to be made that the scariest words in the English language are private equity firm. So, Moshe, explain this part of this, right? So Sycamore Partners, a private equity firm. What's their goal? Why would they be interested in buying 450 hardware stores?
So the concept of private equity as a general idea, Elias, is that rather than being publicly traded on the stock exchange, where they have to answer to quarterly reports and all of the disclosure requirements that come with being listed, and all of the pressures of shareholders who want their regular, smooth dividend payments, private equity is basically saying, we're going to delist you from the stock market. And so now they're going to be as private a company as if you owned it or as if I owned it. We have to file our taxes with Canada Revenue. That's not going to change. But the fact is, we don't have to publicly disclose anymore what our profits are, what our basic operations are. And so the advantage of that is that it removes the pressure that comes from having to be listed as a publicly traded company. It gives them a little more scope then, that if they ever do want to see profitability through Lowe's and Rona, they're saying this is basically the channel we're going to do it, because we just can't do it while dealing with our shareholders and all of the pressures that come with it.
Well, so this is very interesting, Moshe, the way you put it here. So does a private equity firm, will they look at, more cuts, or do they, because they're not publicly traded, can they afford to have a lighter hand here?
Yeah, they're going to be merciless. And by merciless, I don't mean that they're going to fire everybody in sight. I'm just saying that they don't have to deal with quarterly pressures anymore. So if they want to take, say, a 5, 10, 20-year look at how they're going to make this profitable, they don't have anybody to answer to other than internally within that private equity company. And so if they find that they want to expand, if they want to cut, whatever it is, they don't have to explain it to anybody. They don't have to have the person with one share holding up the annual general meeting demanding to have their say at the microphone. So the likeliest outcome, of course, is that they are going to cut stores, and they probably are going to cut staff. And the objective, of course, from the private equity company is that at some point, probably in the medium term, they want to sell this off to somebody else and take it public again. And, they're going to make their profit then by cleaning up the company for whoever that next buyer is.
We're with Moshe Lander, Senior Lecturer in Economics at Concordia University, discussing the sale of Lowe's Canadian operations. That includes Rona and Renault Depot right here in Quebec to an American private equity firm. So, Moshe, it seems like I keep seeing that mentioned, like in business stories. Public companies being bought by private equity firms. It's not just this case. I see it time and time again. Why is that happening so much in business of late?
I think it's because there's increasing pressure that comes with being a publicly traded company. It used to be that being a publicly traded company was a way that a company could get large amounts of capital injected into their business in the cheapest way possible, right? The idea of, not just an initial public offering, but any sort of subsequent share issues is kind of a 20th century mentality, right? These days, you don't necessarily have to go to the public to raise large amounts of money. These big equity firms have these war chests of billions and billions of dollars at their availability, and it's probably cheaper than trying to go through stock markets. And so they're basically offering you, very specific skills in very specific industries where they could say, we have billions of dollars amassed here, and we understand how to work within this particular industry. So, hey, why don't we just buy up all of the shares, remove the pressure that comes from that public listing, where it was worth it in the 20th century, maybe it's not worth it now, and let's give you a little bit more free rein to run your business in a profitable way before we return it back to the public sphere and let shareholders have their say.
Let's wrap it up here where we began, Quebec, right? And remember when Lowe's bought these chains, Rona and Renault Depot, back in the day, 6 years ago, right? That was a huge story, right? And people were talking about, this is another Quebec jewel that's now in the hands of foreign buyers, right? So, Moshe, what's your take here on the future of these two brands, Rona and Renault Depot, that Quebecers definitely have an affection for? How does this play out for them?
Well, it's still in the hand of foreign buyers, so that hasn't changed. I think the reality is that it's a recognition that maybe the space is a little too crowded. And so while it's hard to imagine that, just the four companies that I named, right, Renault, Lowe's, Home Depot, Canadian Tire, and Home Hardware, but maybe four is too many, and somebody's got to go. And inevitably, in Quebec, it's great that it's a point of pride for Quebecers, but apparently not enough to make it profitable. That the owners see the advantage of continuing to operate that way, and maybe they're just ceding the market space to other people. Consumers can say they're as proud of something as they want, but if they don't vote by spending their money there, this is the result. And
Moshe, just so the economic picture, the profits for Lowe's in Canada, it was not good. It was a bad picture.
It wasn't as good as they think it could be, and that's what's going to happen then. Is that they private equity companies basically said, I think we can do better, and so where they're willing to stump up the cash. Don't forget that shareholders are allowing themselves to be bought out, right? It's not like there's some sort of like hostile takeover. It's just the shareholders have said, yeah, we're just not getting the return that we want from this. Yeah. So, hey, if you think you can do better, good for you. Go for it.
Moshe, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for coming on the program this morning.
Anytime.
That's Moshe Lander, Senior Lecturer in Economics at Concordia University.